organizations in Utah who are both acknowledged leaders in the field of sustainability. The first speaker is Doug Carlisle, who's been the facilities manager at Varian Medical Systems for over 15 years. He oversees manufacturing systems engineering, capital construction, plant maintenance, calibration, security, and other functions. He holds a BS and a master's degree in accounting from BYU and has earned CPA and CMA certifications. Our second speaker will be Kingston, who's a senior principal partner and director of sustainability at architectural Nexus, which is a local firm in Sugar House with practice reaching through the Intermountain West. Kenner was an early adopter of the U.S. Green Building Council's LEED grading system. He's responsible for initiating research about, spearheading education for, and ensuring implementation of sustainable practices within the firm. Architectural Nexus has engaged sustainability at every level by promoting professional accreditation, enacting policy, and tracking results relative to sustainable design and construction metrics by designing and building their own LEED V3 2009 Platinum Regional Headquarters. And what I'm going to do is have Doug come up first and talk, and then he'll take some Q&A, and then Kenner will come up and follow him. Unfortunately, Terri Holland was supposed to be able to join us today, but she is very ill, and so we wish her well and hope that she recovers, and we will certainly try to get her back next year. So, welcome, Doug.
Okay, so I guess you're stuck with me for 15 minutes or so. And first I wanted to introduce Missy Nelson. She's our sustainability coordinator at Varian. Justin Hutchinson works on our energy program, so they have a lot of the specific answers that I may not have. So let me get a feel for who's out here. How many of you work in manufacturing environments? Anybody? Oh, good. Got 2 or 3 out there that do. So I think, you know, this will be directed more towards manufacturers than some of the others of you. But what we're really interested in doing is sharing what we do and trying to get an idea of what you do so we can, you know, come up with some better programming between us. And we're always anxious to learn, so hopefully we can pick up a lot of tips from you guys during this couple of days too. So we have, we actually stole this from, I think, Marion, and we divided our sustainability program into 5 areas, which are as shown up there, and I'll go through each one of those 5. But it gives us a little bit of focus, so as we look at each one of these areas, we can figure out activities that we can do to push ourselves along. So what I'm going to show you is our fiscal 11 results, and some of them are cumulative, but basically it'll give you an idea of the scope of what our program is in our company. Just to give you a little background on Varian, we make X-ray tubes and flat panel imagers for oncology systems and X-ray equipment. So CAT scanners, you know, when you get things at the hospital, the flat panel is basically like taking a digital picture. It gives a digital image of the X-ray rather than using film and so forth. So those things work that way. We have about 700 employees in Salt Lake City, so a pretty small company there, and our sales are about $500 million, $500 million a year. So we started tracking in 2005. We were actually doing some few programs before that, but on electrical savings, we started using Rocky Mountain Power incentives and so forth, and then started tracking the kinds of things we were doing and how those initiatives could help us out. So since 2005, had we not done those things, these are engineered numbers. We didn't make them up. They're the numbers that Rocky Mountain Power sent you back. It says how much you save from each project you do. We'd be paying about $300,000 more a year for electricity right now, and we've actually received $321,000 in checks from Rocky Mountain Power for that time. So if any of you are not involved in the electrical programs, opportunities that, you know, from the rebates and so forth from utility providers, you should really do that. Likewise, natural gas usage, we found some ways to reduce that. And so we're saving about $160,000 a year some of the natural gas users that we have in the plant. Well water usage, we had, water rights and wells on site, so we weren't using them to the capacity we could, and so there's about 5.5 million gallons saved. In fact, if we went back more years, we saved a lot more than that because we put in a closed loop system rather than, used to be we just pump water out of the wells and then dump it back into a drainage canal, but now we have a closed loop water system. And so in the past couple of years we've saved, it's not a lot of money, but it's all of us. And so just in energy and water efficiency, in 2011, we will save $465,000. We did save $465,000 over what we would have paid had we not done the upgrades that we've done since 2005. And feel free to ask any questions about any of this stuff if you'd like to. So, waste reduction and recycling is an interesting one. We actually decreased in our waste, decreased the percentage of waste that was reused or recycled this past year, rather than going the other way. There was some actions that we took to cause that. But nevertheless, we have about 61% of the waste in the plant goes through a reuse or recycling program. And so that saves us the cost of sending it to the dump. We actually started doing some on-site solvent distilling. We got some money back for some of our recyclables and did some things electronically. We used to send paper out. So we saved a little bit of money last year in that. And that's one that we're really focused on this year to increase. So we saved about $136,000 last year. Another one that we did is and this is a few years ago, we put in a nitrogen plant. And actually we also have hydrogen and oxygen that we produce on site. Most companies, get a contract with, say, Air Liquide or one of their competitors, and have these gases trucked into your plant. Well, what we did is we put on-site plants in place, we leased the plants, and instead of having to ship some of these gases from the Gulf Coast or from California, we produce them right on site. And not only did we save quite a bit of money by doing that, we saved $736,000 last year over the price it would have cost to truck it in, the lease of the plant. And then there's some carbon footprint emission reductions as a result of doing that because the trucks don't have to roll around on highways. And so basically on the greening our supply chain side, we have our on-site nitrogen plants and our oxygen plants and hydrogen are about breaking even now. Nitrogen to save us some money. Some packaging changes. We've got contracts with our vendors to reuse packaging. And this is another area we're really focusing on this year to try to increase that. So we saved about $1.1 million last year in reading our supply chain, and I think there's a lot we can do there. So I expect 5 years from now, maybe $10 million. Employee and community involvement. We do a lot of things with our employees. We have a green fair that's coming up on Earth Day, where we have vendors come in and show them things they can do at home that are green. We have an employee garden where they get to go out there, people who can plant their own things and that sort of thing. We've got a lot of publicity locally in newspaper, magazine, and radio for the kinds of things we're trying to do. And then the top line is the state offers a recycle market tax credit. If you're not familiar with that, become familiar with it. Our credit in 2011 was $242,000. So it's basically 5% of the capital expenditures you make if you qualify as a recycle business. It's a pretty good deal. So we save a little bit of money even in that one. And then our big hitter is product reuse and recycling. And what we do there is we have our product go out to our customers, but then contractually we require them to return it to us at the end of life. And that saves a lot of problems because we sell all over the world and we don't have to worry about those metals and so forth and liquids being left in a country. There's lots of countries that require you to take special materials out of their country because of useful life. So they send all of that back to us, and we either recover or recycle a huge amount each year. So on the recovery side, we recovered about $21.5 million last year, recycled $336,000, and then high voltage cables are one element we use in testing, and we also sell them. We save about $250,000 in high voltage cables by retrofitting those. So we save $22 million in product we use in recycling. So that's a big part of our business. So if you look at our total sales of about $500 million and $120 million gross profit, then you start adding up all these sustainability items, and you get $24 million in fiscal 20 last year, calendar 2011. We went to directly to the bottom line as a result of sustainability. So not only are we taking just a lot of things out of the chain and reusing and recycling, but it makes the company happy too, because there's a big dollar amount associated with that. We expected our fiscal 12 goal to be $25 million. I think $30 million is closer to what we're going to get this coming year. So it's a lot of money. It's a very effective program from our perspective, but every time we turn around, there's about 15 more things that we find out that we could do. There's when it looks at greening our supply chain, for example, it's just almost endless, all the things that we can do. We walk around the plant and look at all the packaging that comes in. And one of our plants in England has a 100% requirement that you can't ship anything in by cardboard. You have to just ship it in with a container that can be shipped back out. They've done that for years now. So it can be done, but we've got a long way to go. So we're doing a few things. We would love to hear from any of you that have ideas of things we could do better. We learn every time we come to one of these conferences, and we want to share any of the things we're doing that would interest any of you. So I'd be interested in hearing any questions, or comments, or anything from any of you. Oh, go ahead. We'll start on the left. Go ahead.
Yes, I was wondering, so you now have a sustainability coordinator?
We do.
And how long have you had her on board?
Missy's a pro. She's been here a year almost now. So when she came in, she had, I want to pick on her a little bit. She had no sustainability experience. She thought sustaining was kind of making it through the day, and she has picked up just a ton over the past year. And she's very vibrant. She gets out and talks to the people at work. And I think that's the biggest thing there. Is we hear the technical ideas, but she's able to go out and get people to make that happen.
Just another part of that question, I guess, is so you have become very well established and have quite a reputation for doing this. It's wonderful. I was wondering, now, do you mentor other companies along the way? I mean, I know you share, like have you kind of like adopted a few other companies who are really interested but don't have the financial means necessarily?
No, we'd love to do that. We're really kept busy trying to mentor ourselves.
Yeah.
Sometimes. I mean, she has a group of about 25 people inside the company. How many people are busy?
Yep,
Green
25.
team? About 25 people. She calls it a green team.
Yeah.
And they try to, keep some of this stuff to the forefront and talk about it. We haven't helped much in the community, but we've glad it's no problem. I think, a big part of this is just finding out about it. We probably qualified for the recycling tax credit for 6 or 7 years before we realized it was out there. And I've got it's $250,000 free money. You had some other questions? Yes.
How long did it take you to get to where you're at? When did you initially start your recycling and looking at everything?
Well, each one of the programs started a little differently. I think we're getting, you kind of build up that critical mass to keep things rolling. But we started looking at energy, for example, probably 2000, something like that, 10 years ago. We looked at recycling prior to that. We started getting things back to customers, but now we're actively looking for more and more things to do. So it's growing at a much faster rate. I don't know if that's a fair answer. Yes, sir.
Do you have a sense of what your investment is in this? What your return on investment in the savings is?
Yeah, I have a really good sense of that. My background is I was an accountant way a long time ago, and so, and I run the facilities and capital budget and that sort of thing, you know. And so what's interesting is there's really very, very little investment to get these returns. You know, almost nothing. You know, Rocky Mountain Power and the energy investments, the paybacks are under a year for almost everything we do. And we've been doing that. We put $100,000 in our budget aside every year just to do something else and do something else. They just keep adding up. To increase, we're going to increase this year about $7 million in recycling. And we added 2 machines, get a total of about $150,000 to get a $7 million return this year. So, you know, a lot of it's just effort. It's just getting people to think of it as part of their job. And the real difficulty is that we don't have the answers. You know, I don't know where we can save the next dollar. So it's getting the operators and the technicians out in the field, the engineers, to say, you know, how can we make the next improvement? And a good example of that is when you think of energy savings, if you go to Rocky Mountain Power for power, all they want to talk about is more insulation, more windows, better pumps, that sort of thing. But that's sort of like upgrading your oven if you're making cookies or something. And so what we're doing is we're trying to figure out how we can cook them for less time. And so in the past 4 years, our top product, we've taken from the pump cycle on that down to a quarter of what it was, which means we can put 4 tubes in the time we could put 1 tube in previously. And that's about a little over $1 million to build one of those rooms that was pump rooms. So we would have spent $3 million if we had done that for each one of the rooms, to build 20 rooms. So, you know, there's a lot of ways to skin the cat on this, but most of it, I think, is getting people to think differently rather than capital investment. Long answer.
Recycling tax credit, is that federal or state?
That's a state tax credit, and it was extended this year. It's really been interesting because there's one big company that kind of pushes for it, but then there's only a couple of them that take advantage of it. I think there's probably a dozen in the state that take advantage of it. It's a state tax credit. You have to, the process is kind of interesting. You have to qualify as an E2 business, turn in some forms, have that all done by the end of January, and then have the governor's office come out to your Office of Economic Development come out to your site and certify all of that and sign the tax form. So the legislature has they passed the law several years ago, and they've been extending it year by year. And so it was extended through this year, but it will not be on. Hopefully, it'll extend again.
If you have to be E2 business, somebody, anybody outside of Holland County qualify.
No, they actually have, and it's not done necessarily by county, but they have places. You could talk to a guy named Les Pearl at the Office of Economic Development. You could go to different locations throughout. I'm not sure exactly how it's set up, but Salt Lake City has their own, and then there's one in each of the areas of the state. He actually travels around the state making sure that works out. I'm not an expert on it. Les Pearl is. P-R-A-L-L. He's at the Governor's Office of Economic Development. Email me, I can send you his phone. Again, the credit is 5% of all of your capital purchases related to recycling activities, which can be a big amount of money.
I just had a question about how you and Missy build the culture of sustainability and Varian so that we do get buy-in from the operators and the people on the floor, so that we get that kind of input you need to make the program, to move it forward.
Missy has to do all that. Let's ask her how she does that.
I noticed that in it, it's been brought up, what's the investment? How much do you have to spend to get these kind of results? And with that in mind, we set up the green team, and I actually divided it up by objective, matching up who is in the breakdown groups with their core responsibilities. So, say for example, in our grading our supply chain group, I have our shipping manager, 2 of our purchasing representatives, people in our receiving and shipping department, people who are there from the top to the bottom, what comes in and what leaves the plant. So we get direct feedback and accurate information from different areas in where we're trying to improve. So these are things these people are already doing in their day, things that Varian knows they're paying them to do. We're just making sure we collect that information.
You think that is that a program, so future recognition?
We did a recognition lunch to thank everyone for what they did in 2011. And we have a lot of employee events at Varian and encouragement to keep up that.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a hard time keeping your membership as part of your green team? Do you have a lot of turnover?
We don't. That's why we actually had so many people. That's why we had to divide it. People are excited, and they see those getting recognition for doing positive things, and it improves work environment for everybody. It's very positive.
Well, thank you for bearing with us, and we hope to learn from your groups too. You know, anything that we can do that we're not doing, we want to think about and start doing. And the most interesting thing about this is that there's so much out there that you don't think about. There's so much you don't know. So I'm sure that we can crank these numbers up and have a bigger impact if we can learn from you. So help us out. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Kingston. I'm a partner at Architectural Nexus, a local regional architectural firm. I recognize several people in the crowd from other presentations, so we'll try to keep it a little bit fresh. You know, there was a good question about culture and how do you help these issues, these ideas about sustainability, improving the work environment, improving the bottom line, find a way into the culture. So really that's a good stepping stone for my part of the presentation discussion today. A photo of the view from my office, in my office. That's an internal space. We took what was a community eyesore, the Valley's Fitness Building at the top of Parley's Way in Sugar House, quite near Parley's Canyon, and transformed it. This was previously a very dark, dank space used for fitness that frankly needed to be changed. And so when we got the opportunity to take over the building, we were happy to do it. As I talk to you today about changing the culture of your organization or finding a way to sustain the culture of your organization relative to sustainability, these are the steps I'll go through. So we'll go through the case for change. This is definitely an architect's point of view, which is not everybody's point of view, but if you're a facilities operator or somebody who's trying to figure out how to lighten the burden of your facility, some of these statistics will help you. Talking about operational initiatives, what we've done, both on as advisors to, as consultants to the projects that we work on, as well as for ourselves, and then specifically addressing the culture issue. I'm a member of Net Impact. Net Impact is one of the sponsors of today's event. Net Impact is a group that is focused on people, planet, and profit. And I would encourage you to ask myself or other Net Impact members about the organization. What's great about the organization is it transcends individual disciplines. It's not an architect's organization. It's not a manufacturer's organization. It's a business organization for all groups. So let me tell you a little bit about my company first before we get too far into this. I don't know what Varian would call themselves a big company, but I would call them a big company. Our gross revenues for the year are only a little bit above their savings for 2011, to put it in perspective. So we're a small, and by federal government standards, we're a small business in all respects. Some of the projects I've worked on personally that you may recognize, the architects have the good fortune of being able to externalize who they are in the form of buildings. And so you'll see somewhat of a transformation here as I go from some of my earlier projects to more current projects. The University of Utah Orthopedic Center at the University, of course, Park City Medical Center. These are both shots of this is a project that's in construction right now. Mill Creek Community Center is a library, senior center, and recreation center, and will be LEED Gold. And I've learned a lot from, frankly, from Mayor Caroon and his team in terms of how to integrate sustainability into an organization. This is our office. You've seen one view of that internal space that is an internal courtyard, brings daylight into the building. Here's an external view. I actually deleted the slide out, believing I had only 13 minutes today, which would be impossible for me to be that brief. Many people in the crowd will agree. Would show a before and after of the building, but it's quite stunning if you've ever seen the building in the before condition. This is the first time that this image has been shown publicly. This is the Net Zero Salt Lake County District Attorney's Office that we are about to finish construction documents on. It will be site net zero energy. That means that the 1.3 megawatt power system that's on the roof and on the site will generate enough power in the course of a year to offset its energy footprint over the course of that year. All the energy will be generated on site. And it's been a very exciting project to work on. And to a large degree, we've been able to put all of what we've learned from our own experience trying to green our operations into the opportunity to help transform the district attorney's office, because the building can't change behavior unless the people within it are pliable. All right? And a big part of making a net zero building work is behavior of the occupants. We'll talk about that. So the case for change. I don't know if you had a presentation about sustainability from the architectural perspective, you've seen some of these stats. They're compiled by the United States Green Building Council from a number of very reputable sources. Basically what they say is if you're an architect, you should feel guilty. You're probably the one causing the problem. Hats off to Varian for taking control of their part of the world and making sure that they have an appropriate approach to what they do. But the truth is, architects are creating the largest part of the problem we have with energy by creating inefficient buildings. And the simple truth is, the technologies for preventing that from occurring are all in play. There are no new technologies required to reach net zero. The project I just showed you, there's nothing new about PV. It was invented in the 50s and perfected in the 70s and hasn't gotten much better since then, frankly. It's just the appropriate application of those technologies. Utah's contribution to the problem. I have offices in California as well, and I can tell you the Central Valley of California is not that different from Utah in its conservative opinions about sustainability. The coast is a different place, but in all the places I work, there is a cautious engagement at the corporate level to sustainability. A skepticism, if you will. And the reason I think is beyond what's indicated here on the slide is skepticism is free. It doesn't cost you anything to be a skeptic, right? There's no investment in being a skeptic. There's no effort in being a skeptic. It's just free. So here we are nearing the tipping point on sustainability in the private sector, with government having long since passed the tipping point. A project I didn't show you, again a slide that's been deleted out, is the OSHA Salt Lake Technical Center, a project we won in 2000, designed through 2002 and completed in 2004, which was Utah's first LEED Silver building, which happened to be a laboratory. If you know anything about laboratories, they're energy pigs. 10 years ago, we were already dealing with these issues, but that was a federal government building. Several years later, state government, city government, Salt Lake City in particular, Salt Lake County, notably, have transformed their organizations in terms of their expectations relative to sustainable building standards. The business case for change. I think part of what we need to talk about to get businesses past the tipping point is how it can be good for you. So we've tried at Nexus a great deal to focus on that methodology. There are lots of reasons why individuals don't want to change, right? Skepticism being only one of them. Part of what's helped the architectural world, architecture and engineering, change so dramatically is LEED. I'm sure everybody here is familiar with the leadership program by the USGBC that allows buildings to be scored and their performance to be quantified in a very discrete way that helps architects and engineers and owners and operators understand the environmental impacts of their facilities. But it turns out that as much as I want, as an architect, I want buildings to be the solution. The truth is, if we deliver a great building to a client, but the people inside aren't all that interested in the goal, the building isn't operated correctly, many of the goals aren't achieved. And so I've started to turn my attention away from the building, having figured out how to do that. It's actually not the hardest part of the equation, and to the goal of transforming cultures within organizations. So here's a graph that I think helps to demonstrate the nature of that problem. I'll actually step in front of the image. Pie chart representing 100% of the energy projected to be used in our own building. EUI is a relative scoring mechanism for rating buildings one to another. It's simply all of the energy projected to be consumed in a building divided by the gross square feet. So offices, a code-compliant office would score in the mid-70s. National average for offices is actually 90. There's a lot of very poor performers out there in the existing building stock. Hospitals would score in the 200s, labs in the 300s, fast food in the 500s. That's, of course, not a very fair assessment because they have so little square footage, but still, you should feel guilty the next time you eat a fast food. I know I do, and I will continue to make that mistake, I'm afraid. But if you look there at the colored sectors, what I want you to notice, the green sector is about a quarter, right? That says if we have a code-compliant building built to current energy standards, which are much improved over just a handful of years ago, the plug load, that green sector, is the contribution of energy consumption created by the users. That's your computer, your phone charger, your iPod dock, your desk lamp, your space heater, if you have one of those evil things. I'm looking, okay, there's somebody who doesn't. That's good. I'm looking for who looks guilty out there. Anyway, that's the contribution. So now go to an optimized building. Here's what we would call a high-performance building. This is our predicted EUI at the Architectural Nexus Design Center. That's the reduction in energy consumption. Now keep in mind we're talking about an existing facility. We remodeled an existing facility. The opportunity to drive that number down is a little less in a remodel than it is in new construction, but it's more sustainable to hang on to existing building stock than throw it away. So as you shrink the blue, HVAC, that's basically the heating and cooling, and you shrink the red sectors, but you don't change the green sector at all. There's no change in the green sector. The amount of energy going into that piece and this piece are the same. By proportion, the problem associated with user energy use goes way up. It's more like half and a quarter. It doubles. That's a fundamental principle that I've found true on many building types. Wouldn't be necessarily true in a manufacturing facility, but in the offices of a manufacturing facility it would be true. In a dormitory it would be true, all those kinds of things. All right? So we've got to work on the green sector. We need to put high-performance building occupants inside high-performance buildings. That's why the presentation is titled Beyond LEED. High-performance building is only the beginning. So these are EUI graphs broken down into columns for a number of conditions. The tall graph represents that 90. I told you the national average energy performance for buildings would be represented by that 90. And a fundamental breakdown: red would be heating, yellow would be lighting. The items in green above the arrow would represent plug load situations. The top green box in each of the three conditions is data center. The lower green box would be literally the plug loads: computers, phones, task lights, etc. And so these are some comparatives. The middle box here, the middle graph bar, is NREL. You may, if you've been catching any of the buzz about the National Renewable Energy Laboratory's Net Zero project in Golden, Colorado. It's the largest net zero office building on the continent. It was completed just a couple of years ago. That's their score. They score in the high 20s for their natural EUI. Of course, we're trying as architects to drive the energy consumption of the building down as far as we can, because we're about to apply, to get to net zero, an expensive technology, solar panels, PV, to take that bar and make it zero. That's the process of getting to net zero. Make the building very, very, very efficient, apply PV, you reach net zero. So here's how our building shapes up, the district attorney's office in the mid-20s. We feel very thrilled that we've exceeded the results on NREL. I have the same engineering team as they had at NREL, so it's part of why we can have that direct comparison. As far as operations go, let's talk about things you can do. Make sure I'm not going too long. All right, operations equals behavior, okay? First thing you have to do is you have to benchmark. You have to benchmark, you have to benchmark, you have to benchmark. And clearly, Varian has done an amazing job benchmarking. None of their comparative analysis could have been provided to you today without a benchmark to begin with. That facilitates incremental improvement, and you get credibility through proof. I'm really glad we went in the order we did, because I think I can lend a lot of credence to what you just saw. So let's start with initiatives outside your building. All right, things that you can do. You can apply some of this thinking to your home. I certainly have, much to the disappointment of my kids. They're frustrated with the amount of energy discussions we have, but they'll get through it and they'll turn into good humans, I'm sure. But in the meantime, they're just terrible leaving lights on like everybody's kids, but we're working it out. So primary targets. I think the things we want to look at here in our community are inversion abatement and irrigation abatement. Those are the things we can work on outside of our buildings. And so first here, so inversion abatement is all about improving outdoor air quality. Outdoor air quality tends to be an issue that you can it crosses party lines. Just like money, it's a great way to talk sustainability with folks that may not be of your same political persuasion on either side of the aisle. Air quality is a good one too, frankly. And so the first thing we've tried to do as we transformed our organization was talk about promoting non-vehicular travel. There's a lot of other options up there, but for the sake of time, I'm just going to focus on each of these firsts. Kate Lilja is here with Clear the Air Challenge, which is an incredible opportunity for you to take advantage of twice a year. Frankly, it's changed who we are at Architectural Nexus, and takes little to no effort. They've got the entire system for tracking your single occupant vehicle trips online. You challenge teams within the office to compete with each other, and at the same time, we compete with folks outside of our organization. We're proud to have 4 of the top 10 performers last year come from our company. And it has everything to do with creating internal competition as a mechanism. People want to win. That's the way we're built. Irrigation and water use. We've got to do that irrigation abatement. First, decrease the water intensity of plantings incrementally. And you're going to see this word in my presentation a lot, incrementally. I think a lot of times people get hung up on this all or nothing principle, that if I can't be perfect today, I'll just give up. Okay, that's another reason. I think I mentioned in the earlier slide why people are maybe hesitant to change is it's overwhelming to think about how big the issue of sustainability can be. So look for an incremental improvement. You don't have to change the world, just change your part of it. Let's see, at our office, our landscape architecture director is fanatical about watching his weather station. We have the good fortune of having a pretty advanced landscape irrigation system on the building. It's smart, it watches the weather, it knows if it's going to rain tomorrow, maybe it'll skip a cycle. Today, if it's going to be windy, it turns off the spray irrigation that's on the park strip, the only place where we have turf, and waits to water. It's the kind of system that, frankly, right now he's in the middle of evaluating what the payback period is. It's something we did because we believed in it, but I suspect the payback period, based on initial information, is well under 5 years for it, even though we don't pay a lot for water here. We're just talking about embracing existing internet technologies, connecting to existing weather data to make good judgments on when you turn on your spray heads. All right, initiatives inside your building. Primary target should be energy use reduction and waste reduction. All right, first thing we do is tell people It's okay to be a little uncomfortable, all right? A little uncomfortable is okay. A lot of uncomfortable is not okay, all right? And so I always try to take the approach with people to tell them sustainability is not about the elimination. You know, we're not going to regress into a post-apocalyptic society where Varian can't build the things it needs to build. That's not the goal of sustainability. The goal is to eliminate the wasteful use of resources. Well, if you could put a sweater on and you could save $10,000 a year on your heating, you got to be kidding me that you would. I mean, we should be buying sweaters for all of our employees with that kind of thinking. Electric space heaters are on a blacklist. I publicly humiliate people when I find them. I've only found one, and it was a delight to get to show it off to everybody as we removed it and paid the employee for it. Turn computers off, use power saver features. There's a giant missed opportunity. I think Windows 95, 15 years ago, ruined people for power saver features. Anybody who went through that process decided it was a useless tool. The truth of the matter is, I have an Apple product, fantastic power saver features. The newest version of Windows, I don't even know what the heck it's called, is close, very good, frankly. On PCs, there's an interaction between the BIOS and the OS that you have to check for. Your IT guy will know what I'm talking about. And if he gets that set right, Power Saver can work flawlessly. You can wake on LAN for remote computing, still promote remote work relationships, teleworking. There is no reason not to use those Power Saver features. And your computers aren't in use 2/3 of the day. So if you're not doing it, you can save 2/3 of your plug load just by using Power Saver features. Smart power strips are nice. They tend to be expensive for certain users. They can be very, very effective. If you've got a user with a lot of peripherals, like in our office, accounting has 10 keys and those kinds of miscellaneous items. Smart power strips, like the one shown here with a motion sensor, can be very effective. LED task lighting is a no big deal. The next time one of your incandescent bulbs burn out, buy an LED task light instead. Yeah, they're more expensive, but they're also sexier. They look a lot better in an architect's office, frankly. Minimize use of lighting and HVAC overrides. We have an advanced system that will turn itself off at night. If someone comes in, they hit the button. But we've actually trained people to avoid doing that. And say, you know what, if you're only going to be in for 20 minutes, don't hit the override because it runs the lights for 2 hours. Just use your task light, try to get through your task, that kind of thing. This is a very complicated spreadsheet that tries to communicate one simple thing. Is there a laser on here? This is from the DA's project that I mentioned earlier. Part of how we're getting there with that group in terms of training and transforming their culture so that we don't have to put a lot of extra PV on the project is when you're trying to convince people in your organization how to change, find the thing that matters to them. Management's going to care about the bottom line, right? The people are going to care about, I don't know what they're going to care about, so you have to figure that out. On this project, we knew that what they cared about was square footage, okay? They had a budget problem, and they had bigger needs than they had money. Every single project I've ever worked on in my entire career. That's the way it is. And so what we were able to do was we did a plug load study where we found that their average usage was 160 watts per workstation. We passed around watt meters, and I'll show you more about this in a minute, and actually monitored their usage for a number of days and moved it around through teams, made them aware of the amount of power they were using, and quantified that as an average number. I mean, they had a guy that had an entire kitchenette at his desk. He has a coffee maker and a microwave. I'm not joking. I mean, his average usage was up over 1,000 watts for instantaneous usage. And when he was so unconcerned about it, he said, "Oh, the only time I'm up over 2,000 watts is when the microwave's actually moving." You know, yeah. I mean, it's just off the charts. So their new target's 80, and there's a couple of secrets pinned up in here. We're talking about LED monitors. We're talking about not making the mistake of giving people 2 monitors. I think that is a really bizarre trend in business that what used to get done on a 14-inch screen now needs to be done on 2 24-inch LEDs. It's crazy to me. And so we're trying to set up a situation where you have to really demonstrate a business need for the second monitor, otherwise you're going to get 1 monitor. All of the devices we're putting in are just power sipping devices like LED task lights. a high-performance desk fan to help with that. If it's a little warmer than you'd like it to be, you can move some air across you. And then the real smart thing is that we're giving people 10 watts of discretionary power. So they don't feel like they're moving into a fascist state where they just can't do anything they want to do. We're giving them some discretionary power so they have some choice, but only 10 watts worth. And that gets me down to 80. Well, the great thing, the bottom part of the spreadsheet turns the delta between these into square footage and into panels. And it says, if you want to behave like you've been behaving, just let me know. That's okay, because I'm your architect. I'm not here to tell you how to be. I'm trying to show you a path. But your upper management, the mayor, has said the building's going to be net zero. So what that means is if you want to behave this way, I can turn that into a PV offset. I can turn that into square footage. So you're going to be missing 7 offices, or you're going to be paying, you need to go raise the money for another $200,000 for PV. So it's your choice. Behave, pay, or lose. They were on board so fast. It was crazy. All right, initiatives inside your building, consumption reduction. I think I'm running way long, so I'll go ahead and breeze through this. The real trick is, Terri Holland, I actually picked this up from Terri at one of the other presentations we did together. First thing is, be cheap. Don't spend money on things you don't need. And the best way to do that is buy durables. Why are you going to Costco for paper plates? Week after week after week after week. People feel better when they eat off the durables. They behave better. Your clients think you're more classy. There is no reason not to switch over to durables. And everybody said it can't be done, Kenner, we won't have the room in the cabinet. The durables take the same amount of space the disposables did. There's no difference. Another really easy one to do, switch over to daytime housekeeping. All right? In our building, again, at 6 p.m., all of the lights shut off automatically, and there's an override button you can push, and the the heating and cooling system goes into setback. And when we have the cleaners come in, they have to hit those overrides. And it's inconvenient for them to go from zone to zone, so they just go up to the zone and turn everything on. And they run the whole building for 2 hours. It's a big waste of energy. The other benefit is now our people are aware that the building is not cleaned by fairies. It's real people. They have names, and we know them, and we communicate with them, and we have a relationship now. So I think that improves culture too, frankly. So a couple of quick items here. I think in terms of targeting, in terms of how you get there, I like to take the approach of not trying to change the world all at once, eating the elephant a bite at a time. These people here, you can't change their mind. No matter what you say, they've already decided they hate it. What you're talking about is crazy talk. Ignore them. These people, this is me, this is Missy. We don't need to talk to those people either. They're already convinced. This is the group, or this is the group that you're trying to move. If you can move that many people in a finite amount of time, you're achieving success. Don't feel like you have to change everybody all at once. None of these initiatives will last unless they're embedded. All right? You have to communicate the vision. You have to provide reinforcing messages often. You have to find ways to make individual contributions visible. I call that granularity. All right? And you have to know when to shut your mouth, because people get sick of hearing about this stuff. They do not want to hear about it every day. They're actually in business to do something other than save money on energy. So you have to find a way to rotate through your issues steadily, to relax, to lay off now and then. I like to always show this in all my presentations. This is really a spectrum. Figure out where you're at on this spectrum. I sat at this level for a really long time, an embarrassingly long time. And I was able to quickly move to another level, and the level that matters is this level, this action level. Try to figure out where you're at and just move up a level. Again, eat the elephant a bite at a time. And try to get here. That's the one that really matters, to that action level where you're doing something. Find your motivation for change. I actually wanted to update this slide. The last time I gave this presentation was at the Governor's Energy Development Summit. I usually have a picture of the oil spill in Liberty Park here as my motivation for change, but I had to take it off because there were oil people in the room and I didn't want to get egged. But there's a picture of the oil spill in Liberty Park on this one. Anyway, that's my presentation. I'm sorry I've gone long. If you have questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Can you go back real quick to the slide before that had your level of
Milestones, yeah.
expertise? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, is this you say you're an architect, but do you focus just on sustainability in your firm, or what's your job?
What a good question. My job is to do whatever my clients need me to do, and that involves a lot of things. And right now, I've re-envisioned my job as trying to transform my clients, so that I want them to feel like they need me to help them change their culture. And so my role is, I have many roles. The role I'm really here representing today is Sustainability Director. And so things that I'm doing in addition to this, led a coalition of multifaceted engineering coalition to research the way in which water can be reused in a building. And the great thing about that is it's turning into a state bill that will help us store more water on site. Hopefully it doesn't get axed in that process, but trying to even affect legislation. So research, legislation, outreach to clients, sustainability consulting, energy consulting, retrofit consulting, new construction, and continuous process improvement within the firm. Did I get it? Did I get where you were headed?
Yes.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Your bell curve suggested trying to transform behavior across a small segment of people who could be influenced to change. And a previous slide showed a workstation energy budget, which I assume would be applicable to everybody across the organization.
Yeah, there's a difference between a persuasive sustainability director and the enforcing sustainability director. And depending on the topic, you have to, I think, shift gears. There are some things that just have to be done, like blacklisting space heaters. That's just got to be done. And there are other things where you need to ask for people's cooperation and carefully educate them, otherwise their resistance will backfire on you. And it's a kind of a depends proposition. The other issue is between, I've always said that in creating a new facility, clients that do it right have the opportunity to redesign their processes, redesign their culture, redesign who they are, re-envision everything about them. A building is a great catalyst for doing that. And so it's a difference between, this is really me as the Director of Sustainability in a 160-person organization, trying to change us, inch us away from who we were toward who we want to be, versus this graphic relates more to the District Attorney's office, where literally he was in office for 2 months before we were selected as the architect. He feels like we're part of changing his culture. We're doing this for each other. And so the building for him is about reinventing who the District Attorney's office is. And a really interesting opportunity for an elected official, set a vector for all future administrations. Doesn't matter, again, which side of the aisle the next District Attorney stands on, they'll be in a net zero building. So it will be very interesting to see what happens in the next 3 or 4 years.